Karen meets Dorothy at the park, where Dorothy convinces her to bury her husband's and son's ashes at the cemetery rather than keeping them at home, which makes Alice uncomfortable. Karen also meets Mr. Wang, whose son in Beijing doesn't want him living with them. They quickly get along. That evening, with Dorothy's help, Karen calls Alice, who agrees to attend the burial. Meanwhile, Brandon helps Emma select a dance piece for the gala, suggesting a simple one, but Emma insists on choosing the challenging robot breakdance. The next day, Karen arrives early at the cemetery and mourns alone before Alice joins her. They comfort each other, and Alice agrees to move back home. Karen, through Dorothy, learns Alice is preparing for the civil service exam and urges her to succeed, making Alice understand her late brother's struggles under their mother's high expectations. Later, Alice watches Emma practice at the dance studio, and Brandon notices Emma's closeness to Tom, feeling a hint of jealousy. Alice likes the dance music and asks Brandon for his contact. Brandon later also offers to take Alice home, and Emma teases that Brandon likes Alice, but Alice thinks both Tom and Brandon have feelings for Emma. Alice's co-written article with Henry is published in the Finance magazine, making Karen and Dorothy proud. Karen shares it online, regaining her place in her friend group chat. Henry also posts about the article, and Alice takes the chance to reach out to him. She decides to go to Beijing to see him and plans to lie to Karen. Thrilled by her social circle's praise, Karen buys multiple copies to share and agrees when Alice asks to stay in a hotel before the exam to focus. On the train to Beijing, Alice recalls about her sweet memories with Henry, feeling hopeful. After arriving, she heads to his magazine office, only to learn he's out covering an interview. Alice calls him to arrange a meetup, but Henry, saying he's busy and he'll check his schedule. Patiently, Alice waits all day, only to have Henry call later, apologizing that he can't meet. She later visits their first date spot, only to see him roller skating with another girl, just as he had with her on their first date. Heartbroken to realize he has moved on so fast, Alice goes to a bar, where a stranger tries to take advantage of her. She calls Andrew, who warns the man away and rushes to pick her up. When Andrew asks why she left Beijing abruptly, Alice reveals how, in school, he once asked her to care for a stray kitten, but Karen threw it out and scolded her. When Andrew asked about the kitten last time, she had no choice but lied, and it reminded her of how she has often felt like a failure. Alice opens up to Andrew about her heartbreak with Henry. She cries but at least gets things off her chest. Andrew makes them a hot meal and confides that he had a crush on her back in secondary school but was transferred before he could tell her. He encourages her to return to Beijing and pursue her dreams, though Alice still lacks the courage. Andrew also mentions he now has a girlfriend, a hard-working colleague who knows about Alice. The next morning, Andrew goes by breakfast and come back, only to find Alice has already left. On the train home, Alice receives a supportive text from Andrew. Meanwhile, Emma and Brandon practice diligently for the gala. They begin to recognize their feelings for each other. Though neither is ready to admit it just yet, Alice studies intensely for her exam at the hotel, and Dorothy calls to encourage her. That night, she has a nightmare about Peter jumping off a building and stays awake until the morning. Stressed, Alice feels unwell and nauseous during the exam, experiencing symptoms like Peter's before he passed away. Outside, Karen, dressed up, waits to congratulate her, so Alice, fearing her mother's reaction, lies and says she did well. That evening, Tom surprises Emma by proposing to her at a restaurant with Dorothy, Alice, and Brandon in presence. The crowd cheers for Emma to accept, but she whispers to Tom that she needs time to consider. Brandon steps outside, and Alice follows and tells him that she knows he likes Emma. The next morning, Emma wakes up happily to find that Dorothy has finally returned home to live with her. They then discuss about Tom's proposal. Dorothy urges her to accept, saying Tom is a good man, but Emma admits she doesn't feel anything romantic for him. The National Gala finally arrives, and Emma feels nervous before her performance. Brandon encourages her, reminding her how hard she worked for this opportunity. When Emma's legs stiffen from anxiety, Brandon carries her to the stage, where she performs beautifully. The audience cheers, and the show is a success. The next day, Emma invites Brandon out to thank him. She asks his opinion on Tom's proposal, but Brandon hesitates, unsure how to respond. Emma suspects Tom's proposal was more for business than love, but when she tells this to Brandon, he responds cynically, saying true love is overrated. He congratulates her on her performance and leaves, leaving Emma feeling hurt and confused. Alice's civil service exam results are published, and her score isn't good. She avoids Karen's texts asking about it. When Alice returns home, she finds Karen in a fury. Having trashed the house after discovering Alice's poor results and a train ticket showing she'd been to Beijing just before the exam, Alice tries to explain her anxiety and unsettling experiences during the test, but Karen dismisses her fears and demands she take another exam immediately. When Alice refuses, Karen berates her for failing in both career and love. Later in her room, Alice tells herself she'll be as selfishly as Karen has so Karen can taste her own medicine. The next day, Emma meets with Tom to talk. She tells him she likely can't, and doesn't want to, have children. Tom hesitates, saying he'll discuss it with his parents, but Emma knows he's using them as an excuse. Later, over drinks with Alice, she shares about this. Alice opens up, revealing her anxiety during the exam, which mirrored her late brother Peter's struggles. She also recalls Peter recorded a video after his exam and decides she wants to watch it. Though she fails to log in his computer after multiple tries, Alice goes to the cinema alone the following day, lost in thought. She accidentally drinks from a stranger's soda beside her, not realizing it's his until the movie ends. The man watches with amusement, letting her drink without saying anything. And Alice only notices her mistake when the lights come up. After the movie, it rains heavily outside. The man offers Alice a ride, but she declines, noticing his car is full of friends. He then steps out to give her his umbrella instead. Meanwhile, Emma attends a dance school meeting where Principal Zhang announces a competition to select the principal for a new campus. Emma is interested in applying, but Zhang explains that candidates need 500,000 yuan as joint investors, along with a strong influence in the dance world, higher education, and awards. Discouraged, Emma considers giving up, but Principal Zhang encourages her to enter You Think You Can Dance to gain both finances and recognition if she wins. Although Emma doubts herself and suggests Brandon should compete instead, Zhang clarifies that Brandon has no interest. Dorothy later asks about Emma's situation with Tom. When Emma struggles to explain, Tom calls Dorothy, claiming he's been diagnosed with incurable myocarditis and cannot marry Emma as he doesn't want to burden her. Sensing his lie, Dorothy scolds him, while Emma, actually relieved, laughs out loud. Dorothy is annoyed that Tom backed out, but Emma just wants to stay single and live with her mom. Later, Dorothy asks Brandon to cheer Emma up, so he takes her mountain climbing. When they reach the top, Emma is very happy. She later sees Brandon dancing and admiring his skill. Karen begins dating Mr. Wang, giving Alice a chance to mock her mother. Alice agrees to go on blind dates, creating a scoring system to rank each date's qualities. Ruthless in her assessments, she meets multiple men a day, giving them direct feedback on their qualities. Brandon still refuses to join the dance competition. However, Emma learns from Principal Zhang that Brandon and his ex-girlfriend, Hannah, were once part of an international dance troupe. They had won awards together, but after Hannah got an injury that ended her dancing career, Brandon returned to China alone. Emma learns that Brandon was once a student of Leah, a legendary dancer. The next day, she tries again to convince Brandon to join the dance competition. Brandon declines, mentioning his ex-girlfriend Hannah, who pushed herself too hard and paid a price. When Emma asks for more details, he doesn't elaborate. Meanwhile, Karen is furious with Alice for being bluntly critical on her blind dates. Alice retaliates by bringing up Karen's relationship with Mr. Wang, provoking Karen further, but this time, Alice just ignores her mother's anger. Dorothy's chicken shop finally opens, and everyone gathers to celebrate. Later that day, Tom arrives with a large bouquet. Admitting his parents disapprove of him marrying Emma but that he still wants to be with her. Touched, Emma thanks him but gently turns him down. Unable to reach Brandon, Emma grows concerned and tries visiting his residence, but he isn't there. The next day, Emma and Dorothy travel to Beijing for Emma's facial scar removal procedure. Afterward, Emma brings her mother to her dance school, where they come across a show directed by Leah. They decide to attend, and Emma is captivated by the performance. Later, Emma approaches Leah for an autograph. Leah, having seen Emma's performance video before, agrees to chat further. Emma shares her story with Leah and expresses her desire to study dance under her guidance. Leah brings her to her studio, where Emma discovers that Hannah, Brandon's ex-girlfriend, was actually Leah's daughter and has since passed away. Meanwhile, Alice goes on another blind date, only to discover it's with Danny, the man from the cinema. Alice feels awkward and tries to leave, but Danny stops her, confessing he's liked her since they first met. He sincerely proposes they start a relationship. Moved by his openness, Alice agrees to give it a chance. Emma also accepts an interview invitation, where she shares her journey, hoping to inspire others with disabilities.